Ghostbusters turned ghosts, comedy, and raw chaos into one of the most iconic adventures of the 80s. Its legendary cast gave us characters and moments that still entertain generations today. But 42 years later, time has written very different stories for those familiar faces. Some are still here, while others are gone. Now, we look back at the cast then and now, finding out who is still around today. Dan Aykroyd made Dr. Ray Stantz the wide-eyed believer at the heart of Ghostbusters. The man who could face a terrifying paranormal beast and still seem genuinely excited by what he discovered. Ray's absolute enthusiasm for ghosts, ancient mythology, and impossible tech gave the team its infectious sense of adventure, while Aykroyd's chemistry with Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson made their bond feel completely effortless. Born on July 1, 1952 in Ottawa, Canada, Aykroyd was 32 when the film hit theaters, already famous thanks to Saturday Night Live and the Blues Brothers. But Ghostbusters held an even deeper personal connection. Aykroyd co-wrote the screenplay, channeling his lifelong obsession with the paranormal to build a universe that became a massive global phenomenon. Career rolled on with Driving Miss Daisy, Trading Places, My Girl, and future Ghostbusters sequels. At 74 years old in 2026, Dan Aykroyd remains inseparable from the franchise he imagined, and Ray Stantz still embodies its greatest appeal. That wild feeling that chasing ghosts is terrifying, ridiculous, and unbelievably fun all at once. Dr. Egon Spengler never had to raise his voice to steal a scene. Behind those glasses and his permanently serious expression, Harold Ramis created the brilliant scientific mind of Ghostbusters, designing the very gear capable of trapping ghosts, collecting spores for fun, and delivering those absurd ideas with a deadpan sincerity that made them even funnier. Egon's deadpan style perfectly balanced Ray's energy and Venkman's sarcasm, creating a chemistry that defined the team's identity. On November 21, 1944 in Chicago, Illinois, Ramis was 39 during filming, but his actual impact went way beyond acting. He co-wrote Ghostbusters with Dan Aykroyd, having already shaped comedy classics like Animal House, Meatballs, and Caddyshack. He later wrote and directed Groundhog Day, cementing his reputation as one of modern comedy's most influential creative minds. Harold Ramis died on February 24, 2014 at age 69 from complications of autoimmune inflammatory vasculitis. His absence gave later Ghostbusters stories a deep emotional weight, while Egon Spengler remains a beloved reminder of that brilliant writer, director, and talented performer behind those unmistakable glasses. Rick Moranis turned Louis Tully into one of Ghostbusters' greatest scene stealers, a painfully awkward accountant whose desperate attempts to fit in get even funnier because he seems totally unaware of how uncomfortable everyone else feels. His chaotic apartment party, relentless pursuit of Dana, and eventual transformation into Vince Clortho, Master, push Louis from funny neighbor to an essential piece of the supernatural apocalypse. Born on April 18, 1953, Toronto, Canada, Moranis was 31 when the movie came out, bringing the nervous comic energy he had developed on Second City television. Huge hits followed with Little Shop of Horrors, Spaceballs, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Parenthood, and The Flintstones, making him one of the most beloved comedy actors of that era. In the 1990s, Moranis famously stepped away from Hollywood to raise his kids after losing his wife to cancer. At 73 in 2026, Moranis is still an 80s and 90s favorite, while Louis Tully proves that in Ghostbusters, even a nerdy neighbor next door could help trigger the end of the world. Jennifer Runyon helped introduce us to Peter Venkman before a single ghost appeared, playing the female student in his hilariously questionable ESP experiment. She gets encouragement and some highly favorable treatment, while the male volunteer repeatedly gets shocked, immediately showing off Venkman's unique charm, dishonesty, and complete lack of scientific professionalism. Runyon's amused reactions, fawn, make the joke hit, and Bill Murray establish Bill Murray's character in the opening minutes. Button. Born on April 1, 1960, in Chicago, she was 24 during the film's release, still starting her acting career. She later became a familiar face in Charles in Charge, Up the Creek, and A Very Brady Christmas. Then, she made countless television appearances before stepping away from regular acting to focus on family life. At 66 years old in 2026, Jennifer Runyon is still remembered for a classic Ghostbusters comedy moment, Farn, and that brief scene actually does something incredibly important. Before we even hear about proton packs or Gozer, we already know exactly what makes Peter Venkman tick. Bill Murray made Dr. Peter Venkman the face of Ghostbusters by treating the supernatural end of the world like a massive joke. While Ray and Egon obsess over paranormal science, Venkman reads people instead, flirting with Dana, pushing Walter Peck, and confronting terrifying ghosts with the same deadpan face he would bring to an awkward conversation. Fawn. That effortless cool gave the movie a comedic soul that no special effects could ever replicate. Born on September 21, 1950, in Evanston, Illinois, Murray was 33 during production. Already famous through Saturday Night Live, Meatballs, Caddyshack, and Stripes. Farm. Ghostbusters launched him into global superstardom, but his career later took some fascinating directions through Groundhog Day, Rushmore, and the Royal Tenenbaums, and Lost in Translation, which earned him an Academy Award nomination. At 75 in 2026, Bill Murray remains one of cinema's most legendary icons, while Peter Venkman still defines a very rare kind of hero. The guy who saves New York without ever looking like he actually wanted the job. Fawn. William Atherton pulled off something truly incredible with Walter Peck. He made audiences absolutely despise a guy who technically just asked logical questions about an unlicensed, nuclear-powered ghost business. Fawn. But Peck's sheer arrogance turns suspicion into an obsession, and his call to cut the containment, grid unleashes the exact nightmare the Ghostbusters warned him about. Atherton's cold, controlled hostility gave Bill Murray his best human rival, creating the film's sharpest face-offs without a single ghost or proton pack in sight. Born on July 30, 1947, in Orange, Connecticut, Atherton was 36 during production, already highly praised for the Sugarland Express and the Day of the Locust. He later became one of the greatest 1980s screen villains as Richard Thornburg in Die Hard and Die Hard 2, alongside decades of incredible television and film work. At 79 years old, William Atherton is still instantly recognizable to generations of movie fans, and Walter Peck proves that Ghostbusters didn't need every single threat to come from some other dimension. Sometimes, simple bureaucracy is terrifying enough. Ernie Hudson gave Winston Zeddemore something the team desperately needed: a regular guy's reaction to a crazy world. Winston doesn't join out of scientific curiosity or ghost obsession. Not at all. He just needs a paycheck, and his grounded attitude makes ghosts, possessed high-rises, and ancient gods feel even more absurd. Yet once New York is threatened, he stands just as tall and brave as the scientists right beside him, completing the legendary four-man squad that fans still adore today. Born December 17, 1945, in Benton Harbor, Michigan, Hudson was 38 during production, bring an essential warmth to a character whose screen time was sadly cut down from earlier scripts. His massive career later featured The Crow, Oz, Congo, Miss Congeniality, and several return trips to the Ghostbusters universe. 80. Ernie Hudson remains an active, beloved ambassador for the franchise, while Winston's straightforward outlook still perfectly sums up his charm. If there is a steady paycheck, he will believe whatever you want. David Margulies gave Mayor Lenny Klotch one of the movie's most critical choices. Trust Walter Peck and write the whole thing off. Believe four discredited scientists warning that an ancient dark force is about to wipe out New York. His exasperated reactions turn this office clash into comedy, but he still makes the stakes feel incredibly real once Venkman spells out exactly what saving millions of voters means for his political career. Talk about motivation. Born February 19, 1937, in Brooklyn, New York, farm. Margulies was 47 when the film debuted, bringing decades of theater craft and true New York grit to the screen. He came back as the mayor in Ghostbusters 2, then built a killer career with spots on The Sopranos, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, Law and Order, and massive Broadway runs. David Margulies lost his battle with cancer on January 11, 2016, at age 78. His mayor clutch stays this incredibly grounded, human anchor in all that supernatural chaos. Fawn. Just a regular politician who finally gets that when ghosts take Manhattan, the rulebook goes out the window. Stephen Tash played the poor guy who fell victim to Peter Venkman's most brutal early experiments, the college kid getting shocked over and over for guessing the wrong cards. That gag tells you everything about Venkman. Fawn. Science takes a back seat the second a pretty girl walks in. 4. Tash's growing frustration matches Bill Murray's totally shameless favoritism beat for beat, transforming a routine university lab test for a classic intro fans still love today. 4. Born July 13, 1951, Tash was 32 when the movie dropped, with plenty of screen credits already under his belt. Yeah. His credits featured hits like Christine, The Jeffersons, and Different Strokes. Plus, plenty of other television gigs, but Ghostbusters remains his biggest big-screen moment. Fawn. Now 75 in 2026, Stephen Tash is forever linked to this hilarious, unfair slice of movie history. Turns out you didn't need to fight Gozer or Slimer to survive Venkman's lab. Sometimes, just sitting in that chair was hazard enough. Michael Ensign made sure the team's first real gig was absolutely legendary, playing the panicked manager watching his fancy Sedgwick hotel go straight to hell. Slimer is already wrecking the place. But Venkman, Ray, Egon decide to blast the walls, scare the guests, and rip up a high-class New York hotel with raw energy beams. Ensign's straight-faced shock makes the mess hilarious, especially when the guys strut over and hand him a massive bill for catching one green blob. Born February 13, 1944, in Safford, Arizona, Ensign was 40 when the movie hit theaters, already perfecting that uptight, high-society boss energy that defined so many of his roles. He went on to rack up credits in Titanic, Superman, War Games, Seinfeld, Star Trek, and dozens of other shows. At 82 in 2026, Michael Ensign is easily one of the industry's busiest character actors, and that stressed-out hotel manager is still tied to that. Fawn. Wild night the guys bagged their first spook and realized they could charge whatever they wanted for it. Alice Drummond gave us the movie's very first real fright as the terrified librarian who stumbles onto something impossible deep inside the main public library. Font. Long before proton packs or giant marshmallow men showed up, her panicked run through those bookshelves proved this ghost stuff was dangerous, and that first terrifying face-off perfectly kicks off the movie's signature mix of pure horror and comedy. Fawn. Born May 21, 1928, in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, Drummond was 56 when she took the role, an experienced theater pro whose incredibly expressive face made even the briefest roles instantly memorable. She later brought her talent to Awakenings, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective to Wong Fu, tons of TV spots, always turning tiny scenes into highlight reels. Fawn. Alice Drummond passed away at 88 on November 30, 2016, after injuries from a fall. Truly. That librarian is a legend because she gave us the exact moment we realized this funny movie could actually make you jump out of your seat. Jordan Charney played Dean Yeager, the only school boss honest enough to say what everyone really thought of Venkman, Ray, and Egon's weird ghost experiments. Booting them off campus was the best mistake ever. It literally started the business. Without their school funding gone, we get no Firehouse and no Ecto-1, maybe no team at all. Charney's dry, angry Dean clashes perfectly with Bill Murray's sarcasm, giving us another great straight man to watch the guys drive crazy. Born on April 1st, 1937, form. In New York City, Chorney was 47 when the movie came out, already a respected stage and television actor. His massive career featured Another World, 3 Days of the Condor, Network, and Law and Order. Along with decades of theater work, he became a reliable character actor for generations. Now 89 in 2026, Jordan Chorney represents a truly special era of American stage and screen acting, while his character Dean Yeager holds a bizarrely crucial spot in the franchise. Fun. The guy who fired 3 researchers and accidentally launched the Ghostbusters. 4. Timothy Carhart brought a subtle romantic spark to Dana Barrett's increasingly strange life as the violinist. This fellow musician shows an interest in her that gets hilarious once Peter Venkman starts chasing Dana, making zero effort to hide his jealousy. He stays far away from the film's ghostly craziness, but that normal touch actually matters. Fawn. Dana is just trying to keep a normal career and social life, while eggs fry themselves on her counter and something terrifying waits in her fridge. Born on December 24, 1953, in Washington, D.C., Carhart was 30 when the movie came out. He joined Ghostbusters early on in a highly varied acting career. You probably recognize him from Witness, Working Girl, Thelma and Louise, and Beverly Hills Cop 3, plus CSI and memorable television roles, including Seinfeld. Now 72 years old, Timothy Carhart has spent over 40 years working in film, television, and theater, while his violinist remains a small, perfect piece of the normal New York life Dana desperately clings to before Gozer turns everything upside down. Farnman. John Rothman helped kick off the Ghostbusters' very first case as the library administrator. Form. He is the rattled official dealing with a ghostly disturbance that normal science cannot explain. This happens way before the team gets their uniforms, proton packs, or an actual business, showing us Venkman, Ray, and Egon, while they are still just college researchers hunting down data instead of ghosts for cash. Farn. Rothman's completely normal reaction makes their weird science methods look even crazier, which only makes it funnier when things get undeniably paranormal. Born June 3, 1949 in Baltimore, Maryland, Rothman was 35 when the movie premiered, making Ghostbusters an early milestone in a highly productive acting career. Later, his credits grew to include Big Gettysburg, Devil's Advocate, United 93, Blue Bloods, Law and Order, and lots of theater work. Fan. Now 77 in 2026, John Rothman has spent over 40 years moving between theater, television, and movies, while his library administrator remains forever tied to the case that sent 3 weird scientists toward their destiny. Tom McDermott played the Archbishop in one of the film's absolute funniest, most absurd setups. Farm. New York officials trying to figure out if an impending supernatural disaster has real religious meaning. Farthen. His presence during the mayor's emergency meeting really drives home how massive this threat is. Farm. We are not talking about some weird haunting in a hotel or apartment building anymore, but a crisis big enough to force politicians, scientists, and church leaders into one room. Font. July 20th, 1912. McDermott was 71 during filming, making him one of the oldest cast members who brought a lifetime of acting experience to a tiny role. Font. He built his career on solid character work across theater, film, and television, where veterans like him could command respect with just a few lines. Fem. Tom McDermott passed away on December 6, 1996 at 84. While the Archbishop never meets Gozer, his character highlights one of the film's funniest concepts. By the final act, things get so incredibly crazy that absolutely everyone has to face the fact that the Ghostbusters might be right. Fun. Annie Potts made Janine Melnitz unforgettable before the Ghostbusters even found real success. sitting behind that firehouse desk wearing giant glasses, an unmistakable New York accent, and zero patience for nonsense. Janine became the normal anchor in a business catching the dead. Her dry banter with Venkman and obvious crush on the totally unreadable Egon gave the movie an entirely different flavor of comedy. While her frantic cry of "We got one" helped mark the moment, their struggling business finally came alive. Fuck. Born on October 28, 1952 in Nashville, Tennessee, Potts was 31 during production. Already recognized through Corvette Summer and Heart Takes, she later became beloved through Designing Women, Pretty in Pink, Young Sheldon, and as the voice of Bo Peep in the Toy Story franchise, while repeatedly returning to Janine across the expanding Ghostbusters universe. At 73 years old in 2026, Annie Potts remains an active connection to the franchise's original era, and Janine still proves that you don't need a proton pack to become an essential Ghostbuster. Roger Grimsby didn't play a fictional character in Ghostbusters. Showing up as himself helped convince audiences that something wild was actually happening across New York City. As sightings multiply and the Ghostbusters suddenly become local celebrities, Grimsby's familiar presence within the movie's news coverage gives the supernatural, chaos, and authentic broadcast feel, blurring the line between fantasy and the real Manhattan audiences recognized. Born on September 23, 1928, in Butte, Montana, Grimsby was 55 during the film's release, and already one of New York television's best-known news anchors. His long tenure at WABC television helped define the station's eyewitness news era, making his face and voice instantly credible to local viewers. That real-world familiarity is precisely why his cameo works. If Roger Grimsby was reporting on the Ghostbusters, their impossible stories suddenly felt strangely legitimate. He died on June 23, 1995 from lung cancer at age 66. His brief appearance now preserves more than a movie cameo. It captures a recognizable piece of New York broadcasting history inside one of the city's most iconic cinematic adventures. Larry King helped turn the Ghostbusters from struggling paranormal exterminators into a genuine media phenomenon simply by appearing as himself. During the movie's rapid-fire montage of television reports, newspaper headlines, and growing public fascination, King's recognizable broadcasting persona makes it feel as though Venkman, Ray, Egon, and Winston have suddenly escaped the boundaries of fiction and become real New York celebrities. Born on November 19, 1933 in Brooklyn, New York, King was 50 during the film's release. Already an established radio broadcaster, but still several years away from launching the CNN program that would make him internationally famous. Larry King Live debuted in 1985 and ultimately ran for 25 years, during which King interviewed presidents, movie stars, athletes, and countless major cultural figures. Larry King died on January 23, 2021 at age 87. Sepsis was listed as the immediate cause, with other serious health conditions contributing. His Ghostbusters cameo lasts only moments, yet it brilliantly strengthens the illusion that America's strangest, new business had become impossible for the media to ignore. Norman Matlock gave the police commissioner the stern authority needed once Ghostbusters escalates from eccentric ghost hunting into a full-scale New York emergency. City officials gather in Mayor Lenny Klotch's office. Paranormal activity is spreading. Walter Peck's disastrous shutdown has unleashed everything inside the containment unit, and 4 men, once dismissed as frauds, may suddenly be the city's only hope. Matlock's serious presence helps sell that extraordinary shift, making the supernatural crisis feel strangely believable amid all the comedy. Born on August 8, 1925 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Matlock was 59 during the film's release, bringing the seasoned demeanor of a veteran performer to a role requiring authority with very little screen time. Though never one of the movie's headline stars, his contribution strengthened the collection of officials confronting an impossible situation. Norman Matlock died on September 30th, 2015 at age 90. Fan. His police commissioner remains a small but effective piece of Ghostbusters history. Fawn. The moment even New York's highest authorities have to admit that ghosts are no longer something they can simply ignore. Reginald VelJohnson appeared as the jail guard during the Ghostbusters, for Lowest Point, locked up after Walter Peck's disastrous shutdown of the containment unit unleashes paranormal chaos across New York. Full small is, but revisiting the scene today reveals a familiar face just a few years before he became one of the most recognizable authority figures in American film and television. Born on August 16, 1952 in Queens, New York, VelJohnson was 31 during production, still building the resume that would soon change his life. He went on to play Sergeant Al Powell in Die Hard and Die Hard 2, before winning over TV audiences as Carl Winslow on Family Matters, playing that role for 9 straight seasons. Plenty of film, sitcom, and animation gigs followed after that, mostly playing into that warm, friendly vibe everyone loved. Turning 74 on August 16, 2026, Reginald VelJohnson is still an icon of 80s and 90s entertainment, which makes his quick Ghostbusters cameo a wild look at Carl Winslow before anyone even knew his name. Then, Rhoda Gemignani basically handed the Ghostbusters their iconic headquarters, playing the very real estate agent who sells them that run-down, empty firehouse. Pure. The place looks like a total money pit at first for a cash-strapped startup, but it soon houses the Ecto-1, their containment unit, and Janine's reception desk, the ultimate backdrop for the entire franchise. Gemignani's deadpan delivery is the perfect, normal foil to the guys getting hyped over a haunted building. Born on October 21, 1940, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, making her 43 when the movie dropped. She was already a seasoned TV pro, later landing spots on the Jeffersons and Hill Street Blues, plus Who's the Boss, Seinfeld, Friends, and countless other hit shows, always stealing scenes with her incredibly sharp, comedic timing. Now 85 years old in 2026, Rhoda Gemignani is another unsung veteran, tucked into this legendary supporting cast. For her quick scene captured the exact moment a dusty Manhattan firehouse started becoming one of the most famous landmarks in film history. Farm. Then there's Murray Rubin, who turned a nameless elevator passenger into one of the movie's funniest, most low-key jokes. As the guys head up to corner Slimer at the Sedgwick Hotel, Ray, Peter, and Egon squeeze into the elevator strapped with massive proton packs, only to realize they barely even know how their own gear works. Standing right next to them, Rubin is the ultimate clueless bystander, contrasting beautifully with 3 fake professionals sweating over highly unstable nuclear tech just inches away. Born on June 6, 1925, Rubin was 59 when the movie hit. Fun, bringing that effortless presence of a classic character actor to a bit that did not need a single line to kill. It is a massive turning point in the film. Funk, the team finally scored their first real paying gig, but they are still figuring out how to actually hunt ghosts. Murray Rubin passed away on September 10, 2015, at 90. He was on screen for just a few seconds, but that elevator ride is pure comedy gold. Quiet moment before Slimer turns their first job into complete chaos. Dana Barrett gave the movie's pure chaos exactly what it needed. Farp, skeptical woman who is not buying Peter Venkman's charm, and definitely does not believe in ghosts, until one pops up in her kitchen. Sigourney Weaver infuses Dana with such genuine smarts and dry wit, making her transformation into the possessed gatekeeper Zool hit even harder. The elegant, poised cellist we first met is suddenly replaced by a terrifying force bringing Gozer back. This let Weaver transition smoothly from subtle, dry comedy, full-on sci-fi seduction, without losing the human core underneath. Born on October 8, 1949 in New York, Weaver was 34 during filming, already a global superstar as Ellen Ripley in Alien. Farn. Ghostbusters showed off her incredible comedic range, right before Alien scored her an Oscar nomination, which paved the way for Working Girl, Gorillas in the Mist, Avatar, and decades of incredible performances. Fawn. Now 76 in 2026, Sigourney Weaver is still recognized as one of Hollywood's most powerful leading ladies. Fawn. While Dana herself remains way more than a standard love interest, for she is the everyday New Yorker, whose kitchen fridge literally opened the gates of hell. Thanks for hanging out with us as we look back at the legendary Ghostbusters cast. Ford. Which of these stars brings back the best memories for you? Form. Drop a comment below, hit that subscribe button, and stick around for more classic then and now look-backs.